Okay, today we're going to talk a little bit about the way we approach dialogue animation here at Powerhouse. And up on the screen we have the thing that says what not to do as opposed to what to do, but we'll get to that later. What I suggest that you do first is to always listen to your soundtrack a bunch of times until you know all the highs and lows and what the phrasing of the dialogue is, and then make your do all your body language animation first, which is what we always tell everybody to do around here, and hit whatever your attitude pose is for the scene, and hit that about 4 frames ahead, and work in and out of one strong pose with your animation, and then go into the dialogue after you get all that worked out. And just like with the strong attitude pose and having like one good attitude or 1 or 2 strong attitude poses, you should have 1 or 2 really strong attitude mouth shapes. You know, like and then we talk about in the notes that I've handed out, we talk about the standard Powerhouse mouth shapes that everybody should know what they are. And where's the document? I wish I would have kept this. I wish I would have made this a little bit easier for me. But anyway, well, it's in the notes. You know that the number 1 mouth is closed. Number 2 is saying the letter S. For number 3, and then O, U, F, etc. But okay, and for tonight's class, I'm using a character that I made when I was trying to explain to a friend of mine how to animate in Flash with symbols, and he never did anything with the character, and I thought I didn't want to have that be a complete waste of time, so I'm doing this tonight. And anyway, so what I have is a line of dialogue that I took from Frank Nelson, a classic actor. You'll recognize his voice if you don't know the name. Okay, and so what I'm doing is, if you take the standard 8 mouth shapes that we normally use, you can animate the dialogue and it'll look fine. But what I'm thinking is that you've got the happy mouth, you got the either sad or normal mouth shapes, and the happy mouth shapes. And if you've got a mouth shape that is the same in the happy and the sad mouth shape, why not take that opportunity and push one of them further? So here's it using the standard 8 mouth shapes.
Well, we have roast pork, corned beef.
And again, in this case, I'm not animating him, moving him around, because this is just to show you the mouth shapes.
Well, we have roast pork, corned beef, leg of lamb, sirloin tips, and bacon and egg. Well, we have roast pork, corned beef, leg of lamb, sirloin tips, and bacon and egg.
And I mean, and that works just fine. You scrub through the dialogue.
Well, we have roast pork, corned beef, leg of lamb, sirloin tips, and bacon and egg.
But what I did is using all the other mouth shapes, I'm using some of the ones for the sad mouths that are pushed. And you can see that.
Well, we have roast pork, corned beef, leg of lamb, sirloin tips, and bacon and egg.
Some of the P mouse, he's got more air in his cheeks or something. It's just using the kind of the standard set of mouth shapes and just kind of interchanging them a little bit. And I can scrub through the flaw as well.
It's just got a more dynamic look. And when you're if you're just using all the smiling mouth shapes, that works. You can make that work. It's just
right. And here
when
it is,
you combine those,
here they are side by side, and so
excellent.
You'll be able to see that some of them are the same, and some of them aren't. Like in this case, I'm using the number 10 CH mouth because when he's saying the line, it sounded to me when I listened to the soundtrack that he wasn't saying "s," he was saying more like a "sh" when he was talking. So I'll play this, and I can go into the flaw, and can show you that.
Well, we have roast pork, corned beef, leg of lamb, sirloin tips.
See, like when he says sirloin.
Well, we have roast pork, corned beef, leg of lamb, sirloin tips, and bacon and egg.
It might be hard for you to see,
we have roast
right?
pork, corned beef, leg of lamb, sirloin
Right
tips,
there,
and bacon and
as
egg.
opposed to that one. And so let me go into the flaw, and I can show you. Another thing that I did want to talk about is in the mouse shapes. Here we go.
Well, we have roast pork.
I want to talk about the frame sync extension that everybody should probably put on their computer. And this is with the standard mouse shape. So and again, it works. It works just fine. But if you've got the opportunity to push the dialogue a little bit, it's kind of nice to push the dialogue and show the mouse where he's got some air in his cheeks or something like that. And again, in this case, it's really just implied because we're not really drawing these things. We're using the ones that are standard in our set. But you can imply that sort of thing, like that, the bacon and eggs, because what you need to remember is that words like letters like B and P and M you can close the mouth shape, but B and P are usually made when your mouth opens, and you're going like, beef. You're not going beef. The air leaving your mouth is what causes that. So you should always have the B mouth before the actual sound happens. And if you have to steal frames from the previous mouse shape, that's fine. Don't ever make your mouse late. Always, you can have them be early, that's fine, but don't ever make them late. And a closed mouth usually looks better if it's 2 frames. And I mean, that's one thing that Richard Williams actually talked about, and I absolutely agree with that, is that you should have a closed mouth should be on 2s. If you do all your dialogue on 1s, you should have the closed mouth be for 2 frames. Even if it sounds like it's only for 1 frame in your soundtrack, have it be on for 2 frames and steal a frame from the previous mouth shape, because you won't see it otherwise, and it looks better. It kind of makes a better impact, and especially if you're going from a closed mouth to a really wide mouth and settling out of that, you want that kind of an impact, and so you want to be able to see it. And if it's just on 1 frame, you won't see it, and it'll just be doing this kind of stuff, and it'll look really, really stuttery or like strobing, and you don't want to see any of that. So, any questions thus far? No? Nothing? Okay. Okay, and so this is what I just did this to show you, just like differences in using the mouse shapes. Oh yeah, one other thing I'd like to talk about, the letter L. I think, let me see how long did I have this on frame. Let me go into this guy here. That try not to hold on that mouth shape too long, because it starts looking really weird if that L mouth is held for a long time. So I like to do it for no more than 2 frames, 1 frame ideally, so that you got a nice wide, maybe the mouth opening and just kind of flicking the tongue, because the L or D or N, you can use that mouth shape for any of those. That usually happens when the mouth leaves the roof of the mouth leaves the roof of your head. when the tongue leaves the roof of your mouth, and you got to kind of get that L sound or N sound. So it helps to have that not be on screen for too long. And that's another case where you could do a second mouth shape like that, and like how we always say, do your mouth shape in groups of 10. You can make a number 28 mouth with the tongue's already leaving the roof and kind of hanging down. I think I did a drawing in here where it's a possible mouth that you can show, not of this guy, but of the Buddy Bear character. And you could interchange that, or you can have that be on for one frame and the other one be on for one frame, and it'll make your mouth shapes look more fully animated, which, obviously, since we're using these symbols and it's very limited, got to do as many tricks as you can to make it look fully animated. And so, again, so there you got that. And I want to show you another thing that I did on the same character. Here I actually, before I go to that, I want to show you the that same thing with some body movement. So again, this really is just to talk about the dialogue, but this would be the last thing that you would do, would be the mouth shape. So for instance, you're listening to your soundtrack and you're saying, okay, how is he delivering this line? Is he delivering it like, can I have the keyboard, please?
You betcha.
It's underneath there.
Got it.
I can hit play, but thank you, sir.
You betcha.
Okay, so is he?
Well, we have
I added a hand to this just kind of just for the heck of it.
Well, we have roast pork, corned beef, leg of lamb, sirloin tips, and bacon and egg.
It's a real tight close-up because the hand ends right about here. I don't want to draw the whole body, but
Well, we have roast pork, corned beef, leg of lamb, sirloin tips, and bacon and egg.
so okay, is he facing him the whole time, or is he?
Well, we have roast pork, corned beef, leg of lamb, sirloin tips, and bacon and
Is he
egg.
looking away while he's talking?
Well, we have roast pork, corned beef, leg of lamb, sirloin tips, and bacon and egg.
And that's something that you work out when you do this, do the scene. But it's the same, same thing. You work out your body language, and you get that approved by your director, and then say, okay, the director might see this and say, that's really over animated. That doesn't not what I want to see. So maybe he wants you to tone it down because. Again, you don't want to really over animate something just because you can move stuff around. You don't have to move stuff around just because it moves doesn't make an animation, right, Rich?
That's right.
And notice all the stuff on the internet. Okay, so and then what we got is there's another scene of the same guy.
Now let's see what's wrong with you.
And in this case, I think I animated that. The way this was animated was the usual stuff where I did the poses because I wanted him to anticipate and then go forward while he talks to his patient.
Now let's see what's wrong with you.
And now here's something that I would like to show you about using simplifying your mouth shapes. But in this case, when he's saying what's wrong with you, I use the F mouth for him to say what's wrong with you instead of with you, because in this case, having the mouth shape with the tongue sticking out kind of looked weird and it didn't flow with the dialogue. Because it was when I did the character, I made a really broad mouth shapes, so his tongue's really kind of going, and it just doesn't work with this line of dialogue. So that's another thing too. You don't have to use the mouth shape that everybody always says. Oh, that's a TH sound effect. That's the phoneme. I need to use the tongue out mouth. You can use the F mouth for that kind of thing. Just whatever you do, just listen to the track over and over until you know, and just kind of even say it a few times if you want to. I mean, the people around you mostly have headphones on anyway, so they won't hear you talking to yourself.
Now let's see what's wrong with you. Now let's see what's wrong with you.
If you can hear that clearly or not. It sounds like he's saying with you enough that the F mouth works.
Now let's see what's wrong with you.
And so, for instance, while I'm thinking about it, when I did this, say, I want to show you do all of you know about that frame sync extension?
No.
No? You don't? Okay, it's on the network, and I'll talk about, I talked about it in some of these notes here. Okay, it's an extension written by one of two websites. I've got it all marked down. No need to take notes, Mary. One of two websites, either from TuneMonkey.com or AjarProductions.com, and I can't remember where this one came from. But what this is a control panel thing. So what you do is you have all your mouse shapes, and then on another layer on top of it, you put a layer with a keyframe on every frame, and you write what mouse shape that is. Like in this case, happy closed. And then the next one is happy, like happy teeth or ESS. And then you label all of those. Instances, and any symbol that you have with instances, you can label like this. It can be, pointing hand, fist, two fingers, whatever. But that's kind of for the dialogue. It's very useful. Dialogue and eye shapes, but mainly dialogue. So then you go back out to the timeline, and in the mouse shapes, you click on it, and then you expand this a little so people can see, and it may open up not auto convert to keyframe and auto refresh, and you want to make sure that those are selected, and you select the thing that's, like in the case of the eyes, there's nothing, no labels have been made, in the head or nothing, or none of the other ones have labels, but the mouse shapes have labels. So you go in here and you say, okay.
What's wrong?
So in this case, I don't want that. I want to use the TH mouse. You just click there, and it instantly changes it to the symbol, the instance that you want. And you can now watch. If I had done that, what it looks like, to me, it looks really weird.
See, what's wrong with you?
Because you just see for one frame, it just kind of pops oddly.
See, what's wrong with you?
It's very tiny tunes.
Yeah, it is. It is. And so for instance, okay, now I don't want that. I want the happy F mouth instead. And then I did a sad TH mouth, and that doesn't really, I don't think that'll work. It's a very cartoony character, as I said, to show a friend of mine how to work with instances, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time working out the mouse shapes. And so where are we? Sad TH, no, not TH, it's F.
So can you toggle back and forth between like keyframes, like using your keyboard, right, the arrow?
Actually, I think what happens is you click on here, and then you can actually.
Yeah, okay.
And so let's just. Let's just kind of go in here and just start changing mouse shapes, just for the hell of it. Oops, everything's selected. That's not gonna work. So yeah, so for instance, you can every frame that you put it on, it will automatically put a keyframe for you. So that's kind of nice. If you're going through the track.
Now let's see what's wrong.
And so
now let's see what's wrong with you.
So if that were what I wanted, that would look great. So anyway, let's see, where was I? Body language, happy mouse. Oh yeah, as everybody ought to know this by now, but I'll just kind of repeat it. Maybe we can edit this and put this in the correct spot. The happy and sad mouth shapes and all of that, every character that we do, the mouth shapes are always in the same order. It's all, whether it's a realistic character or if it's a really cartoony character like this, it's always, say, 1 through 10 are happy mouse, and 11 through 20 are sad mouse, or the other way around, whatever the standard is. And then no matter what you're working on, you're listening to your soundtrack, and if you're doing dialogue on it, you know that, I need a number 4 mouth here. And it kind of becomes, second nature, kind of, monkey. Any monkey can do it as long as you can use a keyboard. Not to say that people around here are monkeys, you're more highly evolved. No, but anybody can do it. It becomes very easy, especially if you set this up, and that's why I always insist on every character. And a lot of times it hasn't happened, but I have made a flaw out on the web on our network that has the mouth labels and the eye labels already in place. So all you've got to do is go in, copy that layer, open your character, and paste it in a layer above the artwork, and you're good to go. And so there should be no excuse. Every character should have this in its symbol library. And let's see, what else? Labels, listening to track. Oh yeah, when you do your dialogue, for instance, let me go back. Let me actually close this and then reopen it. File, open recent. What's wrong with you? That's a good one. For instance, when you go through it, listen to it. You listen to the track a few times at normal speed before you start going in there and scrubbing the dialogue and changing mouth shapes, because a lot of times you say, oh, this is I'm gonna put the number 4 mouth wide here, and oh, this one here, it's an S sound. I'm gonna put the S right here, and then when you play it, it's going all over the place. So what you want to do is you want to listen to it a few times at normal speed, and then start putting in your, the broad mouth shapes. You don't have to go through and hit all the number 4 mouths all the way through. You can go through it and start, from the beginning. If that's the way you want to work, that's fine. But make sure that you listen to it normally first before you start doing that, because you'll find that it'll go a lot faster if you don't just listen to every frame and put a different mouth shape there. You want to make sure that the mouth shapes are simple and they flow together, and that they're not just flapping jaw. Does that make sense? Okay. What else? The dialogue. And you'll notice here, a lot of this dialogue is on ones. And I don't know, I think Cindy, you pointed out to me that you're seeing a lot of stuff where people are putting dialogue just on 2s. You don't have to do that. Obviously, most of the character animation is on 2s. Everybody know what on 2s and on 1s means? Okay. On 2s. The character animation normally is going to be on 2s, but dialogue can be on 1s. It doesn't have to be on, actions can be on 1s. We're mostly using symbols anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It's not like you're doing a new drawing in Cindy, or somebody's going to have to clean up a new drawing for everything. You can put it on 1s, you can put it on 2s, whatever to make the scene work. If it's a fast action, put it on 1s. If it's fast dialogue, put it on 1s. Try not to just stutter the mouth. Try to make sure that the dialogue flows, because you'll notice that when you're talking, and Rich, you want to do your example, people don't normally talk like this. They talk just kind of a few mouth shapes, and a lot of times your mouth will hit the mouth shape before the sound comes out of it. Like you'll kind of go like, who? So you can do the mouth shape first. So that's something good to know, and also remember that mouth shape, that CH mouth shape. A lot of times people aren't using that mouth shape. They're defaulting to the number 2 or number 12, whatever mouth shape, and that's a good one to remember. Like you're saying the word sure or sugar, or the word along those lines. That mouth shape is a better mouth shape, unless he's saying sure. You just might be sure, and that flows better into the ooh mouth that will come after it. So that's another thing to think about, is what's before it, what's after it. You want the mouth shapes to kind of flow into each other, so you get nice. I don't want to keep using the phrase chewy dialogue, because sometimes chewy dialogue might kind of imply overly animated, but you just kind of smooth dialogue. That's the thing that we're shooting for here, because we're using 10 mouth shapes maybe at minimum 10. maximum, 20 or 30 mouth shapes that we're doing here. So you want to make sure that your dialogue flows. And also, just because there is no mouth shape, maybe you need a special mouth shape for something that you're doing. Ask the director or the supervisor, is it okay to either change the main symbol for the character, or do you make a new symbol in your scene? 9 times out of 10, they'll tell you to make a new symbol special for your scene, but if it's something that we feel that is going to be reused, the opportunity is going to be there, they might tell you to go ahead and do a rough drawing and have Cindy or somebody clean it up so it matches the rest of the scene, or have you clean up the mouth shape for it. Or you could just do a new layer, and say, do a new layer, and maybe, I didn't want that mouth shape. I need a mouth shape where his lips are, pushed out even farther, but he's still kind of saying that CH mouth shape. So you might want to just draw it on the scene here, just for that one instance. You use that, and then you're not messing up the main character symbol, and and here you just kind of put a blank keyframe there. Now that's beautiful, isn't it? Pretty. You can tell that I don't use a Wacom tablet anymore, that I only use a Cintiq. But so anyway, so that's really the main things to talk about, except for like the opening your mouth shape. Do you want to pop your mouth shape open, or do you want to ease it into something? That just comes from listening to your soundtrack. Any questions? Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah.
Everything he said was wrong.
Don't do everything Frank said. One of the things that I see a lot of is, this kind of thing. Yep. And I would really recommend anyone who isn't used to doing dialogue, or is just beginning to start working in dialogue, or if you just want to experiment and hone things a little more carefully, go to Netflix or
come
get
to
DVDs
me. And come to me and get one of my old radio shows. That's where this came from.
Well, I was going to say, watch The Muppet Show.
That too.
Watch it with the sound turned down, and watch the mouths, and then watch it with the sound up. A lot of us at Disney used to keep puppets at our desks. And the first thing that would happen when I would get a dialogue scene is, before listening to the soundtrack, even, I did that thing Frank just said. You immediately look and see what scene comes before and what scene comes after. What's the mood of the character here? What's the mood of the character here? Because you're going to be animating without any mouth shapes at all to begin with. Mouth shapes are the very last thing you do. Yeah. So that will give you a feeling for your acting. But then the next thing I would do is listen to the dialogue, and I would grab the puppet on my desk and I would puppet the dialogue, because there are no mouth shapes. And if you want to see somebody who is absolutely masterful at controlling mouth shapes, look at what the puppeteers for the Muppets did with those puppets, just pulling their fingers forward and back, very light stuff. And they were extremely awesome at in music we call it dynamics, but it's that ability not to just hit things the same all the time, but to hit this hard and then hit this soft, and then hard, soft, and break those things up so that they're not equal. Look for those things in that dialogue that you listen to, because once you get through your acting, then you apply everything that Frank just said. Once you've got your acting up, you've got the scene.
Which one?
Where
I call him Kevin because that was my friend's name that I did this for. Yeah, so I call him Kevin.
The one that, like, what's wrong with you?
Okay. Can
you pull that up?
Yeah.
And hide the mouth shapes and play it without the mouth?
I can. Yeah, I think it might take me a little bit.
Oh, I didn't.
Actually, no. Actually, I think I can.
You just hide the mouths and...
I can do that, or I can do a select all and close its mouth. Please work. Please work. Sometimes,
very good. Okay.
I love it when it works. You know, I don't want to jinx things, but I'm surprised Flash hasn't crashed yet. So okay.
Play the
Now
acting.
let's see what's wrong with you. Now let's see what's wrong with you.
The anticipation.
Now let's see what's wrong with you.
The move forward. He hits his accent
Now
and
let's see what's
softens
wrong
forward.
with you.
Yeah. Oh,
And
and
then-
this is something good to talk about when we talk about actually setting up a scene and approaching to animating. Some of the other things like the timing chart extension I'll talk about, or somebody can talk about it another time. I'm sorry, continue.
Oh no, that's okay. It's just that with the eyes and the body language,
Now let's see what's wrong with you.
it's all there. All the acting is there. Everything has been.
Now let's see what's wrong with you.
That's where your acting is. It's not in the mouth shapes, and it's not in what's being said. A lot of times, a character, and this is starting to get advanced, but a character isn't what he says. A character is what he does, and so.
Which is where that whole, is he looking at the character? Is he looking away? That sort of thing.
Because I know you've been in situations where somebody is talking really nice to you and smiling, and what's coming out of their mouth is just vile. You know, they're really pissed and they're smiling and talking. The actions and the words don't have to jive. The acting is telling you what's happening, and the mouth shapes are just irrelevant. That's just mechanics. But that thing with the puppet is a nice tool to experiment with, and whatever you do, don't look at Pixar films for dialogue, because those are the chewiest, they're the most unimaginative and unschooled mouth shapes I've ever seen in my life, and you do much better looking at the Muppets and saying how little you have to move. You can make 2 moves with the mouth and get a sentence out.
And that's like with that thing when you're talking, when you watch the mouth shapes, because you don't have to go into and show every single syllable. When you say the word cartoon, it's really 2 mouth shapes. It's ah, ooh. And I'll bet you, I didn't animate it but I'll bet if we just used, the first mouth with the C, the smiling mouth, and if we just showed that open and then the ooh mouth, and you had the dialogue playing under there that he said the word cartoon, it would work.
Yeah.
But that's where that number 8 mouth is just a transition to get you from that 4 to that 6. And just because the tongue's up, that's kind of a bonus to get that little T sound in there. And I remember you were talking about that, and I wanted to point something out, and I can't remember what it was now.
Okay, go back to the tape.
Yeah, right?
Roll back.
Yeah. Phooey, I can't remember. Well, some of the things is Ronnie was talking about the acting and all of that. That's why when I was showing you those mouth shapes at first, he wasn't doing any moving at all, because we weren't talking about acting and moving it around. Dialogue was kind of a weird place to start these classes, because we probably should have started from the beginning with, moving the character around, getting your poses, listening to the track, doing all that, and then going into the dialogue. But somehow it got put out there that we're going to do a class in dialogue. So okay, that's where we start. But the notes don't have to be, there are a bunch of notes that have been printed, and you can read through them, or you could throw them away. I'll be very sad. But.
I would say that if you want to think of, talking about Chewier and how cartoony the thing is, if the character design allows it, like in Dilbert, you can go outside the symbol and adjust it and push things around. This character may be a little tougher, but Dilbert wears...
this character you could, I think if you're talking
just
about...
a little bit.
If you're talking about...
a transforming the symbol and
Yeah,
skewing.
yeah. So let's see if this is this, have I gotten far enough back? Yeah, what you're talking about is, yes, so for instance, oops, so for instance, you want to go from, I want to go from that to that. So what I want to do is I want to make this the number 5 mouth, no, the number 5. Yeah. But I want to, it doesn't quite work as a transition mouth, so I could take, I could do that, and I could twist it on this character. On a realistic character, you couldn't do that, but that it doesn't quite work. I'd have to sit here and I'd have to watch it, but I could nudge it, I could twist it a little bit and skew it and get it to be a good. It actually kind of worked. You get that kind of flow.
Yeah, and you can end it, when you close mouth, things can settle. You can push the 5 ooh mouth farther and away.
Definitely, yeah. And you can,
create some arcs.
In this case, I did a separate mouth. Like there's a, that was my number 6 mouth for the happy mouths, and that was the 6 for the sad mouths. And I figured it's the same mouth shape anyway. I'm going to do a pushed one and put it here because you don't want to have too many instances in your symbol because it'll really start bogging it down. Because like Meg and Shane would probably attest to that. Pooch Cafe. You get too many mouse shapes in there, and then you hit your keyframe, and then you can just go up for a cup of coffee and then come back and then hope that it's changed by the time you get back. So you want to, if you can get away with it, you want to, especially a mouth like this where it's the same basic mouth shape. You want to make your second instance of it more pushed, or maybe like a pushed P mouth for one of the later instances, and so there we go.